Nagbabalik po tayo dito sa Usapang Bayan at kasama pa rin natin ang ating kaibigan, ang Fast Times motoring editor ng Manila Times, Mr. Ben Kritz. Ben, you know, we were talking about earlier how the government is coming up with all kinds of tax measures to try to curb the growth or restrict the growth of the automotive industry, and at the same time, they have the resurgence program for the automotive development, which is the CARS program.
That's right.
So, can you tell us how that's in conflict with each other, or how they complement each other, or what it's all about?
Let's talk about the CARS program. And as it just so happens, my column for tomorrow, my regular business column, is about the CARS program. At the risk of offending my friends at Toyota and Mitsubishi who are participating in it, my reaction to the CARS program is, what were they thinking? Okay, just to quickly recap for maybe people who don't understand, under the CARS program, there are incentives given to manufacturers who can produce 200,000 of one model of car within 6 years. And so far, Toyota and Mitsubishi have signed up for it, and they will be producing the Vios and the Mirage, respectively. Toyota Vios, Mitsubishi Mirage, and it will be assembled here in the Philippines. And the idea behind that was to build up the local car industry, not only in the factories, because they'll be producing more cars, which means more jobs for people, but also the entire supply chain.
Spare parts.
Suppliers, transportation, the entire gamut, most of which is based here in the Philippines. That's supposed to build that up. Well, now we're finding out that the local parts manufacturers, which are mostly small and medium enterprises, are not being included in the program, and there's very good technical reasons why not. It takes several years to coordinate a parts supplier with a manufacturer, because parts have to be to exact specifications in exact quantities, delivered at an exact time, and that can all be worked out, but that's a lot of work, and it takes a couple of years to do that. And so the manufacturers are going to the companies they're familiar with, that they've worked with before, which is leaving the local industry out in the cold. That's one problem. And there may be some companies that will go out of business because they are expecting to take part in this, and now they're not, and now the manufacturers are focused on producing so many of these cars that they're not doing so much of their other business. So that's an issue. The other problem is just the contradiction that you pointed out. How do you have, on the one hand, a program that is intended to increase the number of vehicles, and then on the other hand, you are doing your best to decrease vehicle volume on the road? It doesn't make sense to me at all. The whole program to me sounded rather arbitrary. It was put together without due regard to the local market or the potential export market, and it was really just designed to give the government some bragging points. Hey, we built up the automotive industry, whether or not that was actually what needed to be done. I think they should. The automotive industry is going to build up on its own if they just let the market let market forces take their course. You have your own experience in that. We're seeing brands like Bayan coming in, and new brands coming in, and it's gradually growing on its own. I don't think they had to force this kind of program. And what's going to happen when the customers of those 200,000 Vios cars or 200,000 Mirage cars get their new car, and then they are banned from taking it on the road because there are other restrictions on the traffic? It's a clash, and unfortunately, I understand Toyota and Mitsubishi have put a huge investment into preparing for this, so they can't just drop it now. But they're going to have to find a way to make this work out better for everybody. And it's really disappointing that it's not having the impact on the supporting industries that are Philippine based. To support this program, it's not having the impact on them that was anticipated, and that's really unfortunate because that was a key objective of the program.
Since you mentioned the contradictions, sir, on that course program, are you still optimistic that the current administration will be able to solve the traffic problem in the Philippines?
No, I don't believe the current administration will solve the traffic problem. However, if the current administration does the work that needs to be done, they can make some good progress towards solving it. I believe this is going to take years to sort this out. You're not going to have an environment like Singapore, which is still pretty congested, but everything moves smoothly there. You're not going to solve this problem within this administration. However, this administration, if they do the work, they could really lay a foundation for a solution, and I think that's what they should be concentrating on.
How would you compare the Philippine motoring industry vis-a-vis our ASEAN neighbors? What are they doing that's different from us, and how are they managing that their motoring public?
Well, that's kind of a mixed bag because you have countries like Vietnam and Indonesia, and Indonesia in particular, it's a free for all. They are not really managing it much better than the Philippines is. Vietnam is a little more controlled, and then you have Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, where there's very good coordination between, very good in some cases and fairly good in other cases, a good coordination between government policy and the industry's objectives. I think what because the traffic situation, because the automotive industry is so important to this country in general, and because traffic congestion is a serious problem, and it's a serious problem not just in Metro Manila but also in other parts of the country. I think that they need to develop call it what you will, an ad hoc committee, a council, whatever, a working group of industry stakeholders and relevant government stakeholders that more or less on a permanent basis to work together. I would like to see, for example, organizations like the MMDA include people from CAMPI, people from the manufacturers, from the Automobile Association of the Philippines, even the public transport operators groups. Have everybody that has skin in this game be part of the regulation and the solution. That's how things will work out better.
Well, I've read some newspaper reports that says that I think most, if not all, of the jeepney drivers really don't understand road signs. They don't know the road regulations, so that points out to the fact that a lot of these people have no driver education, and at the same time they've been able to get professional driver's licenses. What are your thoughts and opinion on how we can try to improve that situation, particularly for those that already have a professional driver's license?
In different countries, the differences in driver training are remarkable. In Germany, for instance, to get a driver's license, you need to invest about 6 months of your time, and the last I heard, it was around $500 or the equivalent. Here, I don't know if you have to, honestly, I don't know if you have to have any training at all. In the U.S., for instance, when I got my first driver's license, training wasn't mandatory, although you had to pass a physical driving test. However, if you had driver's education, you would get a deal on your insurance. So it was an incentive to have some training. I think that they need to have some driver training, and particularly for professional drivers, they need to have some strict standards for that. And I don't really see it. And unfortunately, any kind of regulation like that gets raised, the hue and cry that comes afterwards is livelihood. People are going to lose their jobs. Well, I'm sorry, folks, if you're not a qualified, safe driver, you should not have that job.
Correct.
Well, so there's a lot of proposals on how the government could address the traffic situation in the country, but given the gravity of our traffic condition in the Philippines, it's a collective effort. It calls for a collective effort. What can you advise our motorists so that they can help ease the traffic congestion in the Philippines?
Be nice to each other, for one thing. You're not gonna save yourself any time by being stubborn on the road. You know, learn some basic driving techniques, even if you have to do it on your own. Familiarize yourself with the road rules, even if they're not, if there's not somebody watching you to enforce them. Practice that. They're there for a reason. Try to be considerate of your fellow motorists. And I know that all of that sounds ridiculous. No one's going to listen to that advice. But really, the golden rule applies. Behave as you would like other drivers to behave. What can I tell you? Everybody's got to find a way to get along on the roads. And until they do, we're going to have a hard time.
Well, with that message of love one another from Ben, I think we can end our show for this evening. Yan po ang isang makabuluhang diskusyon kasama ang Manila Times motoring editor, Mr. Ben Kritz.
Maaari niyo po kami i-follow at i-like sa aming Facebook page, Usapang Bayan. Ako po si Rach Marquez.
At ako po si George Chua. Samahan niyo po kami sa mga susunod nating episodes dito sa Usapang Bayan. So we just